Welcome back, folks, to the ever-changing and always exciting lighting industry. This is the lighting industry's #1 podcast, and that has been made possible by you, the listener. So welcome to another episode of Get a Grip on Lighting. On today's show, we're going to introduce you to some new technology that you may find interesting, you may not. But right now, I'm going to tell you that this episode of the show, and many episodes of this show, have been brought to you by Keystone Technologies, our friends, our pals, our allies, our co-belligerents at Keystone Technologies. Go to KEYSTONETECH.com. Greg, KeystoneTech.com.
When you want new technology in LED lighting, Keystone is one of the #1 sources to go to. They're always coming up with innovative products, and one that they have right now is a vapor-tight fixture. It's in a 2-foot, 4-foot, 8-foot, 2,400 lumens up to about 12,000. It comes standard with stainless steel clips. They thought that through. They didn't say, "Oh, we're going to put on
Plastic
little
clips.
plastic ones that are going to break."
Man. Come on, man.
They did it up. Impact-resistant polycarbonate lens, narrow body, and it doesn't look like your standard vapor-tight. So it's got a cool, sleek look. They're doing it right. Again, Keystone has a vapor-tight fixture that you need to check out.
So go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KEYSTONETECH.com, baby. KeystoneTech.com. Yo, Greg, our membership drive for Nailed 2020 is coming out, man. What's the challenge? We need more members in Nailed. You need to join Nailed. If you're a lighting distributor, if you're a lighting contractor, you can join Nailed. If you're an electrical distributor, you should join Nailed, especially if you're in that. Find why the heck are there lighting distributors when electrical distributors sell lighting? All you electrical distributors out there, why don't you come on down, hang out with us for a bit and see why? Huh? We are allowed to have electrical distributors in Nailed, so come on in, join us. Actually, we just interviewed AM Electric, huh? So electrical distributors can join Nailed. Come on down. Our conference is coming up in Biloxi, Mississippi, Greg, April 19th to 23rd. Come on down. But for right now, we're going to give you some new technology. It's a light switch with an algorithm and some artificial intelligence on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Colin Billings.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
So say hi to Greg Eric before we get started.
Hey, Greg.
Hi, I was worried you weren't going to say that, Mike, so thank you.
I almost didn't. It would have been the first time, I think, in 100 episodes or something like that. So,
yeah.
So, Colin, you have a unique product coming out. I see it in the background there for the YouTube viewers. Tell us a little bit about your unique light switch and why it's different than the other ones on the market.
Yeah, we're the makers of the Orro home lighting system, which today is centered around the Orro switch, which is the first switch and lighting system for your home that takes you to a world where your lights just respond to you. So that's really the big difference here in lighting, is that, up until Orro has been around, everything has been a conscious decision in your home about lighting. You think about it most of the time you walk over and adjust the light. Today, sometimes you can use a remote control or something like Alexa, but those are all thinking decisions. With Orro, you just walk around your house and your lights are perfect.
So is it an occupancy sensor or what is it exactly?
We call it a presence sensor. So most occupancy sensors in lighting controls use one sensing modality. Sometimes that's motion through infrared. Other times that's a form of ultrasonic detection. We actually combine a number of signals together to get an understanding of, is a person there and what's the characteristics of that activity. A key part of that is combining both motion sensing and audio sensing to the environment.
So is it listening?
It is listening, technically. It is not recording. There are two microphones on each and every switch, and that is sensing the auditory signal of the space. So things like, is there sound? What is the characteristics of the sound? Intensity, frequency, a lot of sort of statistical analysis of that. And that gives us a picture of what types of activities are happening and how they relate to previous activities that we've seen inside of a space. So we've all had the experience of, motion sensors in conference rooms where you walk in and you don't move and the lights turn off. That doesn't happen with Orro. If you walk in, you turn on your TV and you're sitting down watching Netflix, we know that you're still there, and we can keep the lights on at the right level.
When did you guys start your company?
We started at the end of 2015, so it's been a little over 3.5 years now.
And did you have any lighting background before you started this?
Personally, I had no sort of professional experience in lighting. I had been, Orro came out of what was probably about a 2-year journey of trying to do lighting automation-like activities inside of my home. I really had an experience around a product called Flux on my computer that really helped me understand the way that light influences how I sleep. And I sort of asked the question of why wasn't the artificial lighting in my home doing something very similar? And I thought, at the time that with smart bulbs and other products that were on the market, in the early, sort of 2011, 2012 period, that I should be able to do this. But after buying, installing, and trying to use really everything on the market, short of, Lutron homework system, even Radio Raw, I struck out. And that was where I really learned, sort of about the opportunity, in lighting controls, but also the way that it can make your life much more comfortable, easy, increase your quality of life.
So these switches that you have work with any light bulb right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we support incandescent, halogen, LED, MLV, and ELV. We also do support fluorescent, although we do not dim it. And so for most home applications, you will find that it will be compatible. We do not support low voltage dimming at the moment.
So do you guys, when you talk about having the perfect light, does color matter? The color of the light for a person?
So color does play a role in, particularly sort of the way that light affects your health in some particularly important ways. However, we only control the power that goes to the load, which means that we're a dimmer, and we only control the intensity. So light, the color quality does matter. However, as I'm sure all of you are, quite probably talked about before, warm dimming technologies are really becoming a lot of the standard in new fixtures. So controlling the power is also effectively controlling the color temperature.
So if someone buys these, and let's say they take a pack of 10, they go home and they install them, what do they do next?
If you install a pack of 10, you'd put it in, most of the rooms of your house, depending on how big your house is. For the next, roughly 2 weeks, sometimes faster than that, you use it like a normal light switch, with the exception that Orro is automatically turning on the lights when you enter rooms, and it's automatically turning lights off after you've been gone for a while. But as you're adjusting the lights across the day, you can adjust it from the switch itself. You can connect it to Alexa or any one of the voice assistants. There's even a mobile app that you can use. We're basically making memories of those adjustments and mapping them to the patterns of activity that we see. And so after about 2 weeks, which is roughly the length of the learning period, we are becoming near fully autonomous, right? So after about 2 weeks, we're at 95% of the lighting adjustments made in a space are made by Orro, and on average making more than five more adjustments a day than you would make normally on your own. So you are getting the right level of light throughout sort of, natural daylight transitions in the morning and the evening, all on automatically from Orro.
And does it go with the seasons as well? Is it able to read the day and time and know that the fall is darker or has a photocell built into it? How does that work?
It has a photocell, so there's an ambient light sensor on the device, so we understand the context of what's going on, right? And so that's really important because as each and every one of us, when we walk into a room, we're sort of going through a whole set of decisions about our lighting environment and then making an adjustment manually today. One big component of that is how bright is the room currently, and so we're measuring that, and we're understanding sort of how the current level of lighting maps to where you would prefer it to be. And if necessary, making adjustments on the lighting sources that we control.
So you've installed these. You're monitoring it for 2 weeks, and the thing I guess is continuously learning the patterns of your home or whatever. How does it do that?
How does it learn? Basically, it starts out with a sort of a default sort of a curve to the lighting for every day. So waking up in the morning, it'll start out soft and sort of sunrise in the morning, bright during the day, unless there's a lot of natural light and will be off. And then sort of the opposite of that as you approach your bedtime. And so as you walk into a room, if the light's not where you want it to be, most people will make an adjustment, right? If light's not right, that's one of the first things you're adjusting in a space. And so those inputs, right? So those adjustments made by the occupant are essentially recorded on the device in connection to the time, the location in the home, and the set of activities that happen before and after that. And then we are essentially building a model that allows us to predict the light level that you want, given what we've seen happening prior to your arrival or, prior to that moment in the home and where we are currently with, total light in the room. Again, making adjustments as necessary.
How many of these have you sold?
So we don't disclose the exact number of switches that we've done, but we are over 1,000 devices in the field today.
Okay.
And do you guys think are you guys looking at commercial at some point, or is it all sticking to residential?
We're starting with residential. I think that the core technology around the lighting control and making it, autonomous, we call it responsive lighting, is applicable in all building categories, right? We've known for, basically 100 years now that humans are pretty poor at managing their light. About 50% of it is wasted because people aren't in the room, or the room's already bright enough, or, you don't need as much light as you're using at that moment in the day. And so being able to sense a space, understand what's going on in it, and be able to adjust the lights to meet the needs of that environment at that time is applicable really anywhere a light is. So today we're proving it in the residential, and we think it will apply far beyond that in time.
You said it's like an iPhone for your home, for your lights or your light switches or something like that. That's what in the bio I read. And so can it be overridden?
Of course. It's imagine, a self-driving car, right? There's still a steering wheel, and there's still an ability to sort of come in and be able to make adjustments, or turn right when it thought it wanted to turn left, right? It's still a light switch. You can walk over it. You can make an adjustment right there.
Can you do it right now?
I don't think this one is actually connected, but
okay.
It lights up. There's an interface on the front that allows you to move between a set of presets, or sort of stages within the dimmer very easily. It has very granular dimmer. You grab it, you can slide it up and down to get, if you really care about getting 14% and not 12%, you can do that on the dimmer. And then you can connect it, to really any way that you interact with your lights already. So if that's a mobile app, we have a mobile app for that. If you use Alexa or one of the voice assistants, you can connect to that and, speak to your smart speaker. We're really providing the everyday experience. And then there's always that case where you want it to be different, and it's really easy to change.
You need a separate speaker in order to tell it. Like can you sit in a chair and say, dim the lights or turn the lights on full or whatever, or a setting you want?
Today, voice control is only supported with a smart speaker. That's Alexa and Google. Using the microphones, we also have a speaker on the device, and it connects to the internet if you choose to. There are really sort of two long-term possibilities that we're working on. One is that these will have voice assistants built in, so it'll actually have Alexa or Google on board the switch. So instead of having to get a smart speaker for your bathroom, you can have an Orro switch. And still get all the capabilities of voice control of your lights, plus everything else that comes with the voice assistant. It's also more than capable of doing local voice commands. So you could be, sitting, at your desk in your office and say, turn the lights up to 100%, and it would be able to respond to that. Those are not currently available, but they're on the roadmap.
Greg, do you think people want that?
I think certain people do, yeah. I think it's a cool factor still. A lot of our controls we talk about is that. I have something in my house that I can do this with.
But you don't use it.
Exactly. Sometimes.
I mean, a lot of it, I like this idea. So commissioning, you install the switch, that's it. You just connect the two wires and off to the races you go.
It's the same set of wires. It does require a neutral wire. You just disconnect your old switch, of course, to turn the power on, plug it into the back of the Orro switch, turn the power on. There's a set of commissioning steps there that, select the load, calibrate. A lot of these things are becoming more and more automatic for the customer. And then, you have a step at the final stage, which is to decide whether you want to connect it to the internet or not. And if you connect to the internet, then you get a lot of functionality that, of course, is required of the internet. So remote control, if you want to adjust your lights when you're not at home, any of our integrations rely on the internet. The other one is that the system operates without relying on the internet. So if at any time your router is not connected, your lighting inside your home will behave exactly the same forever, for 10 years, the life of the product.
Now, who's the user in this case? I'm going to give you an example. At my house, when I watch TV, I want to have the lights off. My wife wants to have one of the lights on and dim. Who's going to listen to me? Who's the switch going to listen to, me or my wife?
Greg, we call those social problems, So,
Okay. So we got to work it out.
We're not yet solving that one. We sort of have two sort of thoughts on that today, and one is sort of where we're going. The first one is that identity is pretty important, in some cases in the home, but it's not yet the sort of place where we've experimented with it as the sort of next step for us to get the most improvement in having the lights basically have no human interaction required to have the right level. At some point, identity might be interesting as that next step for us. The second is that often rooms in the home, maybe the family room where the TV is a very shared environment, but a lot of the other rooms in a home are sort of more specific to whoever lives in them, or occupies or use them a lot. So there is some sense of identity and preference that's more specific to the different spaces in the house. And then there are scenes, sort of the basic baseline expectations for a lighting system for, a home or a larger building. And so, you could have Greg's TV time, and then you could have your wife's TV time. And those are available for you, at a tap of a button or a request by voice.
Does it do therapy with your wife? No, I'm just joking.
We'd make more money if we did that.
You need to learn to negotiate, Greg, with Nikki. You need to give and take.
I win, but yeah, right.
Nikki, if I give up the light switch. So, it's interesting.
She's not listening.
Are you ready? Our wives never listen to our podcast. You want to get metaphysical here? You want to get metaphysical here for a bit? And we'll loop back to light switches in a minute. But you know what's weird about TV? It's like humans have been staring at vertical light for thousands of years. It's like the TV replaced the fireplace. So people at night, they go down and they sit down and they want the lights dim and they want to look at a fire. That's what TV is, right? And then you have this light switch and you're saying, we don't even need the naked apes to turn us on or off. We're just going to know what to do for these pathetic naked apes. It's just going to be the right light level at every time. And all this artificial intelligence and stuff that I read about, it's like, why do we even need the humans? Like to me, it's like we're building this cocoon or this chrysalis to launch some AI species, and you're starting with my damn light switch, Colin Billings.
Well, you probably have a lot bigger problems to be thinking about and using your mind, your brain for than, are my lights on or off or at the right level? So it feels like a pretty good way to be helpful to us. I think it also, to your point, light is this sort of inextricably linked environmental factor, whether it's physics or biology, to humans, right? We are, light is arguably the source of all life on the planet Earth. And so, it's also something that, that in the advent of artificial light was completely disrupted from the normal, the normal trajectory of the way the universe was evolving, right?
I have to correct you because all the listeners are screaming at the TV, at their podcasting app right now. There's no such thing as artificial light. There's only electric light. That's what they call it. The scientists get all pissed off at me because I used to say that all the time, and I still say it sometimes. But I know what you mean. But you know what the funny thing is, light, this idea of controlling light in the IoT world is such a buzz right now with so many different angles, and which is why we were interested in interviewing you, because so many people are trying to capture this IoT thing, and lighting is like a hub of it for some reason. It's for some reason lighting guys and lighting people and lighting control systems seem to think that they're going to be the center of the Internet of Things. Do you get that feeling too, Greg?
Yeah, at this point, that's where it's at. It's all about the control people that feel that.
Yeah, and lighting control guys seem to think that the control of lighting, or the light switches or the lighting is going to be the hub of all controls of all things. And it's interesting that thrust is there in this industry. But it's interesting you said about light, and being able to automatically correct or to automatically adjust based on an algorithm or something, knowing it. So it knows that, when you go downstairs, you dim the lights at this time, and it's making these calculations. Tell me how you guys went about creating the rules of that software. What was it that you went through when you guys were designing the software that works behind the light switch?
So the rules, I think the rules are probably pretty intense to go through. But I think what we started with was, when you're building an intelligent system, the first set of things to do is to make sure it doesn't do stupid things, right? That's, a way of making an intelligent system is to, one way is to say like, hey, we're going to try to incorporate every single possible input that possibly could be brought into the system and use something extremely complex. It's almost not human understandable, like something like a deep learning algorithm or something like that, to then sort of output an answer. And then, maybe that answer is right, maybe that answer is wrong, but you don't really understand how it gets its answer. So, how do you don't understand why it's making its decision. We took a slightly different approach, which was, to start with a core experience, which was, hey, the lights turn on when you enter the room, and hey, the lights turn off when you don't. Okay. And then we measured, or when you're not, and then we measured what we called, essentially it's called autonomous control rate is a very insider term, but it's essentially measuring human intervention. So the number of times that a human would come in and override the system to a different state than was, programmatically decided, relative to all total lighting changes. And that's our performance measure, right? And then the other one was sort of how long did we know that the room was vacant and the lights were still on, right? And so that's a cost of the system. And then we started just making sort of simple steps up the ladder to improve those rates. So, for example, when the room is filled with natural light, a human would normally not turn the light on. And so you would see in the system that, if Orro turned the lights on, a user would often come over and turn the lights off. And so that's that shows that lowers our sort of baseline rate of computer controlled. And it identified an event for us to create rules around. And so, we start out with, hey, like, let's just pick a basic level of light at which the lights won't turn on when it's that bright. Oh, well, actually, the way that artificial light hits a switch, depending on its location in a room, is not, consistent in every room. And so you continue to sort of make simple steps, but you're sort of increasing the coverage of the rules until you get to a place where you're moving in a direction where these sort of key metrics are getting better. So we did a lot of that first. And then we, started to sort of see that you can't treat every room the same. Right. So, one is, Greg, your living room is different than, Michael's living room. It's different in form. It's different in windows. It's different in location of the switch. It's different in how people use it. And so you need to begin to sort of allow each and every switch to sort of adjust to what it sees, in any place where it's installed. So for example, we can understand where motion activity originates in a room when it goes from a vacant to an occupied state. After a number of times of that, you can.
So hang on a second. This system knows how far away you are from the switch. Is it measuring like distance? It does not know how far. Okay. It does not.
It's not time of flight. It does not know how far you are. At least not with the current set of sensors that we have.
Does it knows what angle you come in the room at?
It does.
So it knows that you're coming in on its left side. On my left side, these naked apes walk in.
Well, think of it as whether it's your phone, whether it's your smartwatch, whether it's your car, there's a whole bunch of sensory-oriented data that can be sort of brought out of even a small set of sensors. Each of those things indicate something about the context of what's happening around the switch. And so the question is sort of which of those things are you listening to, and which of those things actually have we would call it integrity, but which of those things actually mean something dispositive about the decision you're trying to make? And so, for example, the direction at which a person enters a room when they enter the room for the first time is a very high indicator that someone's entering. The inverse of that is how many, if you're seeing something move in the other direction, it's an indication of someone's likely to have left the room, right? And they're probabilistic models, right? So just because you go by a switch doesn't mean you actually left. You might have like walked to the door to like yell down the hall at your, at your kids. But with enough data, and as individuals, we're creating an immense amount of movement data in our home every day, right? Just think about tonight when you go home.
Like kinetic movement.
Yeah, I mean that's like it's not the right sort of direct comparison, but like think about your web browser and you're clicking around on the internet and like all those places, your scrolls, your clicks, things you're stopping to look at, all of those things sort of indicate sort of what you're trying to do on the internet. That similar type of approach can be applied to the physical monitoring or physical sensing of your movement and occupancy of rooms. And that can tell us where you're going to be, what you want to do, and how long you're going to be there, all of which allow us to make decisions about where the light should be at any given time.
I got an anecdotal story for you, okay? Which is, you might find interesting, you may not, I don't know. So my daughter came home from...
I'm not going to find it interesting.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. You're fired, Colin. You're off my show. No, but I had my daughter came home from school one day. This is like 2 or 3 years ago. And she said, Dad, I got asked a funny question today in class, and I was the only person that answered no. And so the teacher asked them, how many kids here's parents have to remind them to turn off the lights in their house? Right? And all the kids are like, yeah, my dad's always telling me to turn the lights off in the basement, or he puts his hand up. Right? Now, I have all lighting controls in my house. They're legacy, so you don't have to turn off any lights in my house. Okay? You walk into the bathroom, the light's on, the fan's on, you leave. 5 minutes later, lights go off, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. They're legacy, though. There's nothing smart about them. They're just passive infrared, and they're well commissioned. But anyway, so my daughter was like, oh, like you guys don't have lighting controls in your house? Like, my kids don't even think about turning off a light switch. Like, there's no consideration in their head at all that when they enter, if my daughter were to enter a room and the lights don't come on, it's weird for her. You understand? Because in my office and, when she enters a room, the lights automatically come on in her house. Oh, and when it's time for bed, she goes and turns off the sensor, and the sensor goes off. And then she'll turn it back on in the morning. And then for the whole day, it's on, and it goes off and on based on whether she's in the room, and there's a little dimmer, blah, 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 so you can dim the lights or whatever. But not as smart as the Orro switch, but the same idea. And it was interesting because when you were talking about creating those software rules, it reminded me of me teaching my electricians how to actually commission occupancy sensors in a room, right? Where to position the occupancy sensors, how to look at a space and see, oh, actually there's 2 doors to this wing, so we need an occupancy sensor here and we need one over here, and we're going to join those 2 together so it can see the whole space, but they don't see outside the space. You understand what I'm talking about here? And when you're talking about those software rules, you were actually kind of re-describing to me the way in which I taught my electricians to commission legacy-based sensors prior to all this smart sensor stuff. And it's like, it's the same rules. It's just instead of a human thinking about it and putting the sensors in the room, what you're saying is that an algorithm or some sort of software program is enabled to actually learn those rules as people use the space and then deploy them strategically moving forward, getting better and better and better as time goes on?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah. I mean, I think that, what we wanted to do is we wanted people to understand what the system does. We wanted people to feel that it responded to them and adapted to their preferences in their home. And then, we wanted it to make sure that that felt like essentially a non-foreign, you don't want to feel like you're out of control, right? And so that's why it's still a light switch. It's the same form factor. It's really sort of wants to sort of evaporate into your existing home as much as possible. But yes, I think it's very similar. You could do a lot of this with a whole disparate system of sensors, but you don't need to because you can replace this with a single switch now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I believe you yet, but I'm not sure. A lot of people listen, I'll tell you, the magical mystery tour of lighting is in lighting controls right now. I'm telling you, whether people need them or not, whether they save energy or not, or, this sort of stuff. It's it's a battleground right now, and I don't know if there's any treasure after it. Is that a good way to put it, Greg?
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah. And we're trying to discover.
Yeah, there's like a
out.
big battle right now in the lighting industry about IoT and light switches and lighting control systems and who's going to be the winner and whose platform is going to be adopted and, all these different angles on it. And, at the end of it, I call this the lighting control system bus cycle. Because in my career, 20 years long in the biz, there's been like these cycles of lighting controls where it's been like a cycle and a bust and a cycle and a bust and a cycle and a bust. And this IoT one, it's like maybe actually it might be a real, not that people didn't sell lots of controls or anything like that in the past, but just the lighting control system idea. And that's kind of been a bust, especially in the retrofit market, like, not new construction, but putting in new systems. It's there, it's like a cycle there. The final thing I'd like to say, and I sent you an email.
Let me ask one question.
Sure.
Do you think, let's, like, if you did Rip Van Winkle, you went to sleep for 40 years and woke up, do you think that you're going to turn on a light switch in 40 years?
Yes.
In a house?
Absolutely,
so?
for sure. Uh-huh. Yes. I'll tell you why. So, did you ever read Nicholas Nassim Taleb's book, Anti-Fragile?
I have not, but I get a sense
he
of
wrote
where it's going.
the Black Swan. He wrote all these books.
Yeah.
Whatever's older is likely to be last longer. So, for example, like books are never going to be eliminated. There's always going to be books. Why? Because books are older than ebooks. That's the simple, basic reason, is that if something has lasted a long time, there's something anti-fragile about it. There's something about it which it will move forward into the future. And I think there's something about light switches which will be pervasive for a long time, maybe forever, and till the end of our species. And the reason why, I think there'll be lots of people that do smart home switches and all this sort of stuff, but there's something basic about the light switch that will always be there. That's embedded functionality, very low cost, super easy to use, doesn't require any commissioning, that will push it forward into the future for generations. And and not that I don't think there's room for all sorts of different technologies in that. What I'm wondering is the difference is whether or not humans will be around to switch the light. I think the light switches will still be there. But whether or not we'll be, because like you think, I'm going way off topic here, but I got a couple different things that have just been popping in my head as I've been talking to you. Because I don't know why. Sometimes when I'm having, it's my show, so I talk about whatever I want. But, it's interesting because you hear about like global warming or climate change, right? And you have all these, like, people are at work and trying to save energy, trying to reduce carbon emissions and all this sort of stuff. And it's interesting because what people are actually talking about is the end of days, right? Like if these guys are all right about the stuff, they're talking about the end of the world, right? So I find it fascinating that, it's like, the end of the world is coming in 50 or 100 years, but you need a fancy light switch to stop that from happening. So a lot of this stuff, when we're talking about it, it's, I'm looking at it, it's like, 40 years from now, I'm going to be dead and gone. Maybe not, might be 82. But the idea of the Orro light switch, I think what's happening here is we're really just landed on the shore of this idea of smart home or in engaging with technology in a way that's outside of our commissioning. It commissions itself as a very new thing. And I think it's an exciting product you've created. But I don't know if it may, in my mind, to me, it looks like a prototype, Colin. And I hate to say that. You know what I mean? To say that to you. But to me, it's like there's so many different types of control systems, Greg. And we don't know which one's going to be the winner. But there's going to be a winner. And it's going to be adopted. And it's going to take 20 or 30% of the market. And the rest is going to be dimmers and light switches. That's what I think. I don't know what you tell me, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously thought about it a lot more than I have. I think about the next sale here, but I think, yeah, you're right to some degree. I think, there's so many definitions of what a switch is. If you're talking a toggle switch versus an on-off sensor, I think a lot of things will become sensors, and it's just a matter you still have manual capability to do it. With your Orro switch, you have manual capability. It just has that built into it. So I don't know what the answer is, but
How much
I
does it
see where
retail
you're both
for?
coming from.
How much does it retail for?
If you buy a single switch, it's $199, and then it goes down from there as you buy more.
Okay, so there's like a cost thing to it. Eh? One more point for you. There's a lot of words that are thrown around, and I don't know if you even have the answer to this, but like artificial light, artificial intelligence. Isn't something either intelligent or it's not? You can't really have an artificial intelligence. It's still human intelligence. It's just programmed, right?
Well, so I wouldn't call what we're doing artificial intelligence, right? At least not in the way that it's sort of part of the sort of common specter of mainstream today,
Sure.
right? So what I consider, I don't know whether it's a distinction without a difference, but it's machine intelligence, right? It's a machine that learns how to adjust what it senses, and it follows a set of rules and algorithms to come out with an answer, right? Artificial intelligence, or general artificial intelligence, would posit the synthetic creation of knowledge or understanding that has not existed before based on a set of processes and calculations that a computer did. So that's different. That's definitely not what we're doing. Your home is not going to become sentient with Orro and then decide whether or not your door can open. But your lights are going to respond to you as you walk around your house, and you're not going to have to think about it.
How many? Can you have multiple of these in a bank of switches? And will they work?
You
together?
can. So it's the exact same form factor as a standard dimmer from Lutron or Leviton or any of these other folks. So that means you can start with a single switch if you want to try it out and see if Michael's right and this is a bunch of bullshit, or if this is actually the real thing. But you can put three of them side by side if you want. And we're having additional product come out at the end of this year and early 2020 that will make that sort of more of a choice, right? If you really want sort of all the integrations and capabilities that come with the existing switch, you can put one in each of those rooms where those matter. Like you don't need a voice assistant on every single switch in your triple gang, and then connected sort of lighting products that bring the other light sources in your home into that system and leverage the intelligence of that for controlling it. And so it's really seamless to get started. And what we see is that most people come back and they buy more of them pretty quickly.
You said earlier that there's a life rating of 10 years. Is there an hour rating on these? And do you envision them having to get replaced every 10 years?
We designed everything the same way you design a car, which is you work backwards from a 10-year lifetime. And do things last longer than a 10-year lifetime? Absolutely, right? But you don't know for sure, and you can only sort of do mean failure times. So that's where we started. We basically borrowed a lot of components that you normally find in your car because they're more reliable and durable. And so at 10 years, we haven't reached that point. No Orro switches lasted for 10 years. So I can tell you that I'm pretty sure that they'll go far longer than that. But that's our commitment in terms of what you should expect. From what we can see, Lutron doesn't even really tell you that your switches are going to last longer than 7 years. So there's sort of an industry expectation of once you start to incorporate electronics, which most dimmers are having today, right? If you want to sort of control or dim an LED, there's some level of electronics that are incorporated into the load control. That you're now dealing with, a set of things that are not purely mechanical. It's not steel or another alloy for a potentiometer. And so from that perspective, you may have to replace them, but it'll probably not be while you're still living in your home in most cases.
And just quickly again on the dimmability function, so you need the light bulb to be dimmable. There are LED screw-in light bulbs that are non-dimmable.
So it can control on and off. So if you select a non-dimmable bulb, right, then Orro will turn either your lights on or off. If you want the benefits of the range of dimming and what comes with that, both in the sort of ways that it'll impact sort of the biology of your system, we recommend dimming. You're welcome to use it with non-dimmables if you want.
It would control every light on that circuit the same way.
Correct.
Okay. And then so
You wouldn't.
kind of in closing on my end, I think, Mike, this might be a question for you too, but when we talk about light and health and smart lighting and what it's all about, is it the color quality or is it the level of light? I don't know the answer to, and then right now Orro's saying we're talking levels of light. Other people come out and say make it color changeable. So what's the right answer?
It's both, Greg. And I'll sort of the circadian rhythm, which is really the system that we're talking about here, is essentially a dance between two hormones in your body. One's called cortisol and the other is called melatonin. Cortisol is a stress hormone, baby brother of adrenaline. It helps you stay focused. It's really what helps us stay awake. And melatonin is sort of the opposite of that. It sort of calms the body down. It's really the gatekeeper or the starting gun for most of the processes associated with sleep. Melatonin is actually connected to the absence of light, right? So there's an interesting difference there, right? So, and then because they're a binary pair in the endocrine system, when cortisol is pumping, melatonin is not. Right, so you're sort of going through a gradient. Think of it as like a dimmer, if you will, from one to the other. So if you have blue spectrum light, so you have sort of cool temperature lights in your home, after the sun goes down and they're on, they're going to have a stimulative effect on cortisol, which is going to delay or inhibit the onset of melatonin. Now, if you really want to,
you know who knows that very well. It's interesting because we've had a bunch of scientists on, and they were talking about the health effects of lighting. And I said, what you should do is you should go and find the designer of the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas, because they have known for decades that when you shine white light into somebody's eyes all night long, they'll give you their paycheck. They'll stay awake. They'll get into like a weird, they'll screw up the circadian rhythm. So casinos are circadian rhythm disruptors. And so we've known for a long time that we can disrupt the circadian rhythm. That's not an issue. We know that we can disrupt it. Whether we can actually mimic it or we can actually aid it, I don't think there's any proof of that yet.
I'll send you some research. They have shown that if you put a person in a room, give them all types of things to do, and you, let's say it's, after they've been awake for hours, because you kind of need to be awake for a while to accumulate sleep. And then they simulate a sunset. So they basically remove food from the environment and actively stimulate melatonin production. So I don't think we're going to recreate the circadian rhythm for people. I think we're going to sort of remove the friction for our system to do the natural thing. And so for us, what we do, and part of it is physics, is that even if you have a bad, I don't want to say bad, you have a cooler color temperature light in a particular room, if you dim it, it's a power law of physics, the actual energy in the photon halves, and its impact, becomes, halves with every unit of distance that is between you and that source. So dimming a cool temperature light in the evening will actually reduce its impact on you, right? So, one way of color tuning is saying, hey, I want to have a brighter level of illumination, but I want to decrease the negative impact of blue light. And so that's like red or, warm color temperatures. In both of those cases, you're just removing the stimulative effect of blue light. You're not promoting the production of melatonin the way actually removing the intensity of light from the room is.
I think there's something to the color of fire. I think there's something about that is deeply embedded in our evolution. That humans are used to being attracted to, feeling safe, feeling relaxed, feeling a sense of wanting to go to sleep that comes from that low color temperature of fire, the warm color temperature. There's something to it. No scientist can tell me what it is yet, but I believe it. The second thing is that I actually think that light to creatures walking upon the earth is a lot like water to sea creatures, in that, perhaps we're not aware of it totally yet. We're kind of like fish in water with light. We don't really it's hard for us to even conceptualize what it is because we're kind of swimming in it in a sense, even when it's dark. We're still in this same light fishbowl. And what was it that Adam, what's his name, from UL,
Lillian?
Adam Lillian said they did this study. They had all these studies of classrooms. Like he had, I think it was 200 or something like that, different studies of natural lighting classrooms. And they know that children that are in classrooms that have a lot of windows perform better. But they didn't know whether it was the natural light or whether it was the view or something to do with that. But then they actually, in the study, I think it was Adam, he said he found these particular studies where the kids had no windows, but they had solo tubes. You know those tubes? You had one in your bathroom at your old house, Greg, where it was literally a skylight, but you couldn't see the sky, but it was allowing natural light to come in the classroom. And those kids perform better too. That's very interesting. It's like, what is it with the light from the sun and the electric light we create? Is there something different that we don't know about? Yeah, we're like fish in a fishbowl. Maybe the fish can live in the fishbowl and he can swim around and he doesn't know he's not in the ocean, but he's not going to live as long and it's not as healthy as an environment as it is swimming in the ocean. Maybe light is the same thing for us. And maybe what people need is just more natural light in their lives, whether it's, brought in from skylights or whatever. And I think we're, again, that's another place where it's almost like with light, it's like figuring out the software from inside the program. Does that make sense? Like light is our operating system. It generates life. It all of our fossil fuels are actually stored light energy, in a sense.
Yep.
Right?
I think that's a fact, right?
Yeah, it's stored light energy, right? The plants grew, they got crushed, they were in the way. If that, I mean, there's even theories that people say that that's not even what it is. It's that plate tectonics creates oil, but that's a whole other, conspiracy theory. But what's interesting, we're on this like wet rock spinning around a nuclear fission reactor at 14,000 kilometers an hour, and the fission reactor spinning around this other thing at 100,000 kilometers an hour. And it's like the whole thing is like an aquarium of light. And here we are inside of all that, and we're looking at this, and we're trying to find out ways that we can not have a light switch anymore, Colin Billings.
You're always going to have a light switch. I agree with that. I think that there's always going to be us control in the room, but you're not going to control your lights every day, right? You're not going to think about it, 50 plus times a day to have to do that like you're probably doing today, or if you have a system, you're probably a bit better off than that.
Colin Billings, thanks for being a guest on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. If you want, send me up one of those switches and I'll put it in my studio here. I'll see how it works.
All right. In your studio, not in your home?
I'll put it in my home, wherever you want, man. I own an electrical contracting company, so it's not a big deal. We can make it happen. Toot sweet. Folks, thank you for listening. Bye for now.
Keystone Technologies. Go to KEYSTONETECH.com, baby. KeystoneTech.com, Greg.
That was a fired up one there. I don't know if I can follow that, but I'll
you know why? I love Keystone, man. I love my friends at Keystone. I love Josh Brown and Ira and all the guys down there. I think they got great products, and they're coming out hot with what?
Vapor tight fixtures now. So in addition to all their retrofit products, they got awesome vapor tights, 2 foot, 4 foot, 8 foot, roughly 2,000 lumens up to 12,000, DLC premium listed. And you know what else Keystone does? Other than we talked about at the beginning, they put stainless steel clips on, like you should always do in a vapor tight. They include mounting hardware.
Woo, that's fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good.
Just include it. I don't want to think about all that. I got to get hanging kits to put them up. Keystone does it for me. Thank you.
So go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. You know what Keystone does really well on top of making their new vapor tights? They listen to their customers, Greg.
That's important, as we found out.
Oh, yes. They listen to their customers. They're very good at listening. They're very responsive. Great sales reps, great order desks, great people. So you got to go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. A great nailed vendor sponsoring Nailed's podcast.
They are one of the best, and they're a great organization to be a part of. Not only Keystone, but also Nailed. That's
right.
what's
The
coming up. And we
National
gotta
Association
check
of
one.
Innovative Lighting Distributors. If you've lasted this long and you're still listening and you're mowing your lawn, why aren't you a member of Nailed, dude? You're listening to this podcast and you're not a member of Nailed. Where do you think we learned all this crap? Like, how do you think we got the knowledge in our 40s to sit around and talk about light bulbs all day on 3 shows a week? You think it was magic? Oh, Colligan's a genius. Greg Eric's a genius. No, man. We hung out at Nailed. We met all the great people in Nailed. And we sat around and talked about light bulbs for hours and hours and hours. And then eventually one day we said, guys, maybe we should record this. Number one
Pretty good
podcast.
information.
Number one podcast in the industry. So if you're still listening, man, and you're not a member of Nailed, shame on you, son. Thanks to Colin from Orro. Hey, exciting piece of technology there. We question him on the show. There's a lot of stuff like that out there. He's in a busy space. That's the problem there.
Yes, but it's interesting to know about, at least.
And I guarantee
grip.
you, remember he asked me if there's going to be light switches in 50 years, and definitively the answer is yes. There for sure will be toggle light switches in 50 years. And even if we live in a simulation in the Matrix, in the virtual reality or the revealed reality, remember revealed reality, Greg? Or the augmented reality world we all download our consciousness into, those will have light switches too.
So we're going to check back in September of 2069.
And there'll still be light switches. Guaranteed,
Okay.
son. GetAGripOnLighting.com and NAILD.org, baby. Thanks for listening.
Written on the rectory wall, there's a sign there for all. You are lost, Lord is there to find you.